So, lads, this is not a great look for the Indiana Fever organization. If you've got Caitlin Clark, the star of the Indiana Fever, she's going and seeing whatever about not seeing the Indiana Fever's doctors. Like, it is what it is with that. It is what it is. Like, I think a lot of players and teams get second opinions. But if you haven't seen here, Stephanie White says there's no update on Caitlin Clark or potential timeline. She met with another doctor, but White says she hasn't spoken.
The superstar who revitalized basketball in Indiana has just delivered one of the most powerful messages in WNBA history without saying a word. Caitlin Clark, the face of women's basketball and the player who can turn an ordinary Tuesday night game into a sold-out spectacle that feels more like a Taylor Swift concert stop than a league matchup, is once again at the center of attention. Following her recent groin injury, reports indicate that she has stopped communicating with the Indiana Fever's medical staff. Let that sink in. There has been no press conference, no public statement, and no dramatic social media post, just silence. Yet that silence speaks volumes. This doesn't appear to be a rookie acting out emotionally or a star throwing a tantrum. Instead, it feels deliberate and calculated, the kind of move that communicates more than any interview ever could. When the league's biggest draw seems to lose trust in the professionals responsible for protecting her health, it raises concerns that extend far beyond a single injury. And this situation didn't arise overnight. It follows months of intense physical play, questionable officiating, repeated no-calls, and a demanding workload that had fans urging the Fever to ease up. Now, the player who helped reignite basketball culture in Indiana appears to be setting boundaries, not loudly or dramatically, but firmly. If these reports are accurate, this is about more than a groin injury. It's about trust. It's about control. And it may be the clearest indication yet that Caitlin Clark is no longer willing to let anyone jeopardize her career, even the franchise that relies on her more than it might publicly acknowledge.
But she kind of leaked out the bag to the team that she was kind of going to get a second opinion. To me, an athlete like Caitlin Clark on her level, she should have been getting these second opinions. She should have been hearing from all these other doctors, man. But Stephanie White spoke to the media yesterday. She really didn't give a whole lot, but she did say that Caitlin Clark was in New York meeting with other doctors. Now, with all of that being said, what does the timetable look like to me for Caitlin Clark coming back? I keep telling y'all, around the 17th to the 30th of August.
She has met with a different doctor. And she won't even give an update to the team. Not, oh yeah, she's met with a different doctor and we're waiting on an update. She's waiting, or not even, well, that's basically it. They're waiting on, she's gone to a different doctor and they've heard nothing.
Frankly, it may be overdue for someone to hold this organization accountable for treating a generational talent like a supporting character in someone else's narrative. What appears to be happening in Indiana goes beyond simple mismanagement. It feels like negligence disguised as patience. Behind the scenes at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, reports suggest the atmosphere is far more strained than any polished public relations statement would indicate. This situation isn't just about a single groin injury or a minor breakdown in communication. It reflects a widening disconnect between Caitlin Clark and an organization that may not have been fully prepared for the responsibility of managing one of the most valuable players the league has ever seen. When the cornerstone of your franchise no longer trusts the team's medical staff, that's not a minor concern. It's a major crisis. Clark is not just another rookie to be tested or rotated casually. She is the driving force behind the team's visibility and popularity, the reason opposing arenas sell out and television cameras track her every move, even during warm-ups. Yet at times, she has appeared to be handled like an expendable piece, rushed back into action, subjected to constant physical play, and now sidelined again with few clear answers and uncertain timelines. That kind of uncertainty quickly erodes trust. The growing speculation makes sense. Clark may not be making public statements, but decisions like this are rarely accidental. Players of her caliber think beyond the present moment. They think about longevity, legacy, and control over their careers. If Indiana cannot demonstrate that it can properly protect and support its most valuable asset, it's reasonable to wonder whether Clark may already be thinking about her future. This could mark the early stages of a much shorter tenure in Indiana than many anticipated, not because she doesn't appreciate the fans, and not because she lacks the ability to carry the franchise, but because generational players rarely remain in situations where they feel unheard, unprotected, or poorly managed. If the Indiana Fever failed to adjust quickly, this may not be remembered simply as an injury story. Instead, it could be viewed as the moment Indiana mishandled one of the most significant players in WNBA history.
News: Caitlin Clark. Following a July 15th injury to her right groin, Indiana Fever guard Caitlin Clark underwent further medical evaluations earlier this week. The team can confirm that no additional injuries or damage were discovered through the evaluations. Clark will continue working with the Fever medical team on her recovery and rehabilitation, with the priority on her long-term health and well-being. There is no timetable available for Clark's return, and no additional details will be provided at this time. Any further updates will be shared as they become available.
Internet noticed something specific that Holly Rowe had to say on the broadcast. Holly Rowe said that before the last return after a quad injury, she had no practice time, which, if that's actually true, like if she wasn't practicing, if she wasn't going full speed, then why was she returning to the court? And that's actually something that I pointed out. I believe it was Scott Agnes reported that Caitlin had gone full speed in practice, but there was only one practice that she had gone full speed, and then she...
If you've been following this analysis, consider subscribing because this story appears to be evolving. When Caitlin Clark limped off the court on July 15th during a game against the Connecticut Sun, visibly frustrated and holding her right groin, it didn't feel like a routine injury that fans could simply brush aside. The moment carried a different weight. It seemed less like misfortune and more like a tipping point. Sources close to the situation suggest this incident is being viewed internally as a breaking point, what some are comparing to a Kawhi Leonard-type scenario, in which a superstar quietly but decisively loses confidence in the organization responsible for safeguarding her health. This injury was not an isolated accident. Instead, it appeared to be the result of weeks of intense physical play, accelerated recovery timelines, unclear updates, and growing concerns that may not have been fully addressed. When a player of Clark's stature begins to question whether the medical staff truly prioritizes her long-term well-being, the conversation shifts. It's no longer just about rehabilitation schedules. It becomes about trust. And once that trust begins to fracture, everything changes. Superstars rarely create public drama in these situations. They don't have to. Often, they simply grow more guarded, communicating less, relying more on their own judgment, and taking greater control over their careers. If that's where Clark stands now, then July 15th may not be remembered merely as the date of another injury. It could instead mark the moment when the dynamic between player and franchise fundamentally changed.
Clark's team has made it known we are going to be holding her out until she is fully recovered. We are not going to be rushing her back at all. After taking Indiana Fever's advice, eventually Caitlin Clark needs to take matters into her own hands, make decisions for herself, and I believe that's what we are seeing with the team that she now has surrounding her.
This is how it starts in sports. This is how it starts in the NFL. This is how it starts in the NBA. When you start seeing the wheels in motion, there's signs. There's signs before eventually a player gets traded. A player eventually marks their next destination. The Indiana Fever, you're on notice. You're on notice. You better recognize what you've got going on, the asset in front of you, and you do whatever you have to do to correct what is happening.
Caitlin Clark has now dealt with 4 separate muscle injuries in a single season, a left groin strain, a left quadriceps injury, and most recently, a right groin strain. For an athlete who never missed a game due to injury during her collegiate career at University of Iowa, and who entered the WNBA known for her durability and elite conditioning, this sudden string of soft tissue injuries does not appear to be simple misfortune. It suggests a troubling pattern. When a player with that kind of Iron Woman track record begins experiencing breakdowns across multiple muscle groups, it should raise serious concerns. Soft tissue injuries rarely occur in isolation. They are often linked to overuse, compensation from a prior injury, rushed returns to play, or poor workload management. One strain can subtly alter movement mechanics. Altered mechanics shift stress to other areas. Over time, that chain reaction can lead to additional injuries. That's why concerns about possible mismanagement are growing louder. This is not a case of a fragile player struggling to adjust to the professional level. This is a generational talent whose body appears to be signaling repeated warning signs, signals that may not have been fully addressed. For Clark to transition from never missing time to experiencing recurring muscle injuries in rapid succession suggests that something may be off in how her health and workload are being managed. At the professional level, small mistakes can compound quickly. If this pattern continues, the narrative will no longer center on a single injury-plagued season. Instead, it may shift to whether a franchise failed to adequately protect one of the most valuable players the league has ever seen.
Speculating that Caitlin Clark injury could be much worse than expected. You know, these type of injuries and the way she's been getting these injuries is not normal to have these strains back to back to back like this. And I said this before, Caitlin Clark mobility is off, bro. I believe she might have came back too fast from the first. We all know the first one went down around the 25th of May. Then she came back and got re-injured around the 4th of July to the 5th, somewhere up in there of July. And then that brings us.
The only good news about today is Caitlin Clark is no longer dealing with Stephanie White and these coaches and this Indiana Fever medical staff, trainers, doctors, none of that. She's seeing her own medical doctors, her own team. That's the only good news of today. She has abandoned the Indiana Fever medical staff, and I'm happy about it. I'm happy about it. She's pulling a Kawhi Leonard, what he did with the San Antonio Spurs, letting it be known, hey, look, I'll get back to y'all when I'm ready. I'm going with my own medical staff. Y'all can beat it, kick rocks, and I stand with you, Caitlin Clark.
During WNBA All-Star Weekend, Caitlin Clark admitted it's the first time she hasn't felt like she could simply rely on her youth and run nonstop every day. As she told Glamour, being a professional athlete has taught her that caring for both her body and her mental health is essential, and adjusting to that reality has been a learning experience.